The grass is always greener on the other side, they say. But in my neighbourhood, it better be exactly 2.5 inches tall, or you'll have the HOA breathing down your neck faster than you can say property values. Case in point, my new wind chimes led to a noise complaint and a stern letter about unauthorized auditory installations. Join me on a journey through the looking glass of suburban living, where garden gnomes are public enemies and conformity reigns supreme. I'll expose the absurd world of power-hungry neighbours and escalating tensions. Brace yourself for a tale that culminates in a shocking 911 call, proving that the true cost of picture-perfect lawns might be higher than you think. I pulled into the driveway of my new home in Perfection Pines, a picture of suburban bliss with manicured lawns and pristine sidewalks. As I fumbled with my keys, eager to start this new chapter, a friendly voice startled me. "Welcome to the neighbourhood!" It was Sarah from next door, offering a warm smile and a cryptic warning about the intense HOA. The first few days were a whirlwind of unpacking. Then I found the HOA rulebook in my mailbox. As I flipped through the pages, my initial enthusiasm began to wane. Grass must be maintained at 2.5 inches, give or take 0.25 inches. I blinked, wondering if I'd need to invest in a ruler. No wind chimes, lawn ornaments, or decorative flags without prior HOA approval. I glanced out the window at the plain cookie-cutter yards. The uniformity I'd mistaken for tidiness took on a more sinister tone. That night, the silence was deafening. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd moved into some sort of suburban Stepford. Where was the personality, the charm, the little quirks that make a house a home? The next morning, fueled by defiance and a desire to make my mark, I hung wind chimes on my front porch. As I admired my small act of rebellion, I felt a sense of satisfaction. The gentle tinkling seemed to breathe life into the sterile atmosphere. But my victory was short-lived. The following morning, I found a violation notice taped to my door. The offence? Unauthorized wind chimes in clear violation of HOA Regulation 7.3.2. As I crumpled the notice, I realized this was about more than just wind chimes. It was about the right to express myself in my own home, to add a touch of personality to my little corner of the world. And I knew then that my battle with the HOA of Perfection Pines was just beginning. I smoothed out the crumpled violation notice, my fingers tracing the crisp folds as I contemplated my next move. The gentle tinkling of the wind chimes drifted through the open window, a subtle reminder of the brewing storm in my picture-perfect neighbourhood. I couldn't shake the feeling that these seemingly innocuous rules were hiding something far more insidious. The next few days passed in a blur of anxious anticipation. I found myself obsessively scanning the rulebook, searching for loopholes or ambiguities that might give me some leverage. It wasn't long before I noticed a pattern in the neighbourhood, a stark absence of individuality that went beyond mere conformity. Attending the monthly HOA meeting, I hoped for a reasonable discussion. As I entered the community centre, the tension in the air was palpable. And then I saw her, Karen, the HOA president. She clutched the community guidelines binder like it was the Holy Grail, her eyes sharp behind thick-rimmed glasses. When I voiced my concerns about the wind chime violation, Karen's response was a masterclass in condescension. "If you don't like our rules," she said, her voice dripping with disdain, "perhaps this isn't the right neighbourhood for you." Her face had turned a shade of red I didn't know existed in nature. Over the next few weeks, Karen's routine inspections of my property became more frequent. One day I caught her measuring my grass with a ruler. It felt like living under surveillance, her beady eyes scrutinizing every inch of my home for the slightest infraction. As I watched her meticulously document each perceived violation, a realization struck me. Karen wasn't just enforcing rules, she was on a power trip, using the HOA as her personal fiefdom. The wind chimes, the grass height, the approved colour schemes, they were all just pawns in her game of control. I knew a confrontation was inevitable. The tension between us was building, a powder keg waiting for a spark. But even as I steeled myself for the coming storm, I never could have predicted how it would end. Something told me that the next time Karen and I crossed paths, it wouldn't end with a simple violation notice. The day of reckoning arrived with the gentle tinkling of my wind chimes. Who knew such a peaceful sound could spark a war? It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when I heard the telltale click-clack of high heels on the sidewalk. I peered out my window to see Karen marching up to my door, clipboard in hand and fury in her eyes. My heart raced as I took a deep breath, preparing for the confrontation I knew was coming. As I opened the door, Karen's shrill voice cut through the air. "Those wind chimes are a violation!" she screeched, her finger pointing accusingly. I stood my ground, feeling my neighbours' eyes on us from behind their curtains. "They're just wind chimes, Karen," I said calmly. "They're not hurting anyone." Karen's face turned purple as she launched into a tirade, listing every infraction I'd committed since moving in. From the height of my grass to the colour of my mailbox, nothing escaped her scrutiny. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all, which only fueled her rage. She started threatening fines, liens, even eviction, her voice rising with each dire pronouncement. That's when I noticed movement in the neighbouring yards. People were coming out, drawn by the commotion. To my surprise, some neighbours started voicing their support. "Leave them alone, Karen," shouted Mr. Johnson. "Those chimes sound lovely." Others defended Karen, citing HOA rules. The street became a battlefield of opinions, with Karen and me at the centre. Karen, realising she was losing control, did the unthinkable. She pulled out her phone and dialed 911. "Yes, I'd like to report a disturbance," she said, shaking with anger. "A resident is refusing to remove unauthorized decorations and inciting rebellion against the HOA." As we waited for the police, the community came alive. Neighbours were talking, debating HOA rules, sharing stories of run-ins with Karen. It was as if the wind chimes had awakened the neighbourhood from its conformity-induced slumber. The arrival of two confused officers marked a turning point. They listened patiently to Karen's rant, their expressions a mixture of bemusement and exasperation. When she finally ran out of steam, one officer turned to me. "Sir," he said, struggling to keep a straight face, "I'm afraid we can't arrest someone for wind chimes. This is a civil matter." As the officers left, a hush fell over the crowd. Then, from somewhere down the street, came the faint sound of tinkling metal. Another set of wind chimes had been hung. Then another, and another. It was like a wave of tiny musical rebellions sweeping through Perfection Pines. The wind chime incident sparked a transformation in our community. Neighbours began expressing their individuality in small ways, from vibrant gardens to quirky mailboxes. The once uniform streetscape blossomed into a tapestry of personalities. We formed a committee to revise HOA rules, balancing property values with personal expression. Heated debates ensued, but slowly, a true sense of community emerged. My wind chimes remained, their melody a reminder that sometimes rebellion creates harmony. Our story reflects broader issues in suburban living and community governance. It shows the power of standing up for what's right, even against seemingly insurmountable odds. As I sit on my porch listening to the gentle tinkling, I can't help but chuckle. Who knew wind chimes could cause such a stir? Share your own HOA horror stories in the comments.